Cape Cod Broadcasting weaves the listening environments of 99.9 WQRC, Ocean 104.7, WFCC Classical 107.5, Cape Country 104, and CapeCon.com's website experience to reflect the lifestyles of the people who live, work, and play on Cape Cod. We hope that you enjoy this podcast.
I'm Laura Reckford, and this is Sunday Journal. I'm here in the studio with Diane Pratt, Executive Director of the Cape Cod Center for Women. Diane, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Laura.
We're continuing our conversations about some of the bigger social issues on the Cape, and one of those is certainly domestic violence. We talked to Lisetta Hurge Putnam of Independence House a few weeks ago on the issue. Cape Cod Center for Women is another agency that deals with that issue. Diane, tell us a little bit about Cape Cod Center for Women and what services you offer.
Absolutely, Laura. The Cape Cod Center for Women is the only emergency confidential domestic violence shelter on Cape Cod and the islands. We provide protective housing and a secure location for women and children that are fleeing domestic violence.
Now, what is the history of Cape Cod Center for Women? How did it start? How long has it been on the Cape?
The shelter has actually been at its existing location for 15 years now. We always were very almost working under a shroud of secrecy, and we have started to realize that that may not be the best practice. Sometimes we find that our families are actually safer if there's more public knowledge, and that way there's also more support from the community to help our families. Many times they do come from Cape Cod and the islands, but we also accept women and children from off Cape. Right now, there are approximately 300 women every single day in Massachusetts seeking emergency domestic violence shelter.
It's a huge number, and you mentioned this change of being very secretive, and I know for years when I was a newspaper reporter and writing about your agency, and we would never say where it was, and it was always very vague, and that's interesting that now you're changing that policy.
We are. I mean, we don't really broadcast our address, but we do want people to know that the shelter is here. We are in Barnstable County, and we have opened an administrative office on Spring Bars Road in Falmouth.
Now, does the shelter mainly house women and children? Is that the primary purpose?
We do. We would house anyone that is a victim of domestic violence. It's usually women and children because they are the ones that call us first usually, and we take them on a first call, first served basis. As I said, we get 350 women every week looking for domestic violence protection. And so we are aligned with SafeLink, which is the domestic violence hotline in Massachusetts, and the minute any of the shelters have a bed opened up, our phones ring off the hook. Last week we had an opening, and in 15 minutes we received 12 calls.
So you're always full. How many rooms do you have?
Right now, we only have room for 4 families. We have a strategic plan where we are actually looking to buy a larger home. We hope to have 10 bedrooms so that we could more than double the space that we have now.
Now, are people referred to you, or how do they typically, as you said, your phone started to ring when you had an opening, so I'm sure there's a network of public service agencies who keep in touch with that, but do people also end up there having been referred to your agency?
Many times the referrals might come from the police departments, from the courts. Sometimes the victims themselves can be calling from the hospital. Maybe a DCF worker might be calling us. Another shelter might be calling us. And some women who have gone from domestic shelters before may know that we're there, and they might reach out to us as well.
Now, I know the process of someone leaving their home and going to a shelter, very traumatic, I'm sure, very difficult. Does your agency's staff get involved with helping someone to do that, or how does that process work? How do they get to your door?
Absolutely. My advocates are trained so that the first question they will ask someone calling in is, are you safe? What can we do to help you? Sometimes that might be calling 911. anyone to get a police escort to get them out of the home and get them to us. If they're coming from a hospital or the court or another agency, we will work with whoever the referral is and make the appropriate transportation to get to us. A lot of times it can be in the middle of the night, and when the women and children come in, they're frightened, they're scared. Sometimes there's physical injuries, and it's scary to be going into a shelter when you don't know what to expect. You're going into community living. So our advocates are trained to sit with the moms and the children and to talk to them, and we try to welcome them the best we can with like a welcome basket and a toy for the child or the children. A lot of times when they arrive at our place, they have nothing but the clothes on their back, so we have to provide clothing for them, and we take care of food and getting them the medical treatment that they need and setting up all the services that they need.
Now, how long is the typical client at the shelter?
That depends. Usually when they leave us, they may go into transitional housing. Sometimes they're lucky enough to get into Section 8 housing. So it can be anywhere between 6 and 9 months in most cases.
And does your staff help with that piece of getting them housing, helping to set them up maybe with other agencies?
Absolutely. That's one of the biggest jobs of the advocates, to work with them, to help them set realistic goals, to help them to understand that they have choices in their own lives. If they don't have a high school degree, we will work with them to maybe get them into a GED program. If they want to go to work, we'll help them through career opportunities. We will help them with all their housing applications. So we provide as much support as we can. We look at it from an entirely holistic approach where we try to give them everything, the emotional, the physical support that we can.
And I'm sure there are a lot of different steps if one is in that situation to getting back up on their feet.
There is. Probably the biggest part is the emotional healing. Many times there's physical healing as well. But when the women and children come in, they have been battered. And battering isn't always physical. It can be emotional abuse as well. And we have had women in the shelter who never have been able to write a check. They don't know how to balance a checkbook. They don't know how to go to a grocery store because they've basically been kept prisoners in their homes. I had one mom that had 3 little children, and the first week the children were looking out the window when they saw the garbage truck come down the road, and they got all excited. And I didn't understand why they were so excited. Well, it's because the children had been locked up with blinds drawn, and they hadn't been able to look outside. So they see a garbage truck. To them, it was exciting. And so you just never know what these families have been through, and especially these children in their very young lives.
Very traumatic for them, I'm sure. I'm Laura Reckford, and this is Sunday Journal. I'm talking with Diane Pratt from the Cape Cod Center for Women. Now, how exactly do you work with other agencies on the Cape? Because there are a number of agencies that work on this issue in particular and also helping to house people. Is there a common method of working together?
There is. There are referrals, and we try to work with all of what we call our sister agencies. The Falmouth Service Center is very supportive, so our clients go there for free groceries and free clothing. We work very closely with Independence House. They provide community programming, and so a lot of times their advocates will come in and help our advocates in group sessions and that type of thing. We work with Housing Assistance Corporation of Cape Cod on the housing applications. We work closely with We Can, with a baby center, so we try to partner with all of the other agencies. As I say, it takes an entire village to combat domestic violence.
And you were mentioning earlier how you work with police also, who are often the first ones on the scene to see what's going on, and that's a very intense thing that they do as well.
It is, and last week we were very fortunate. We have letters of support written from the District Attorney's Office and also Cape Cod Healthcare, where we are trying to implement a new program where we will actually provide advocates or licensed clinical therapists in Cape Cod Healthcare facilities for young children who may come in that have been victims of domestic violence. There presently isn't any program like that on Cape Cod.
And so this would be new at Falmouth Hospital and Cape Cod Hospital?
And any of their outpatient facilities, pediatric offices, anyone that would need this program.
And so this is particular therapy involved with it for a child who has been in a household where there's been domestic violence.
Yes, very similar to what Children's Cove does with the Cape Cod Healthcare. They work with children that have been victims of sexual assault. We would work with children of domestic violence. Independence House works more with the older children, ages 12 to 18, usually in a group session. So we would be working with the younger children.
Now, the issue of domestic violence is so much in the news these days, and then on the Cape, as we cover the police logs, we see it come up quite a bit. How big is this problem on Cape Cod?
It's huge. Many times people say on Cape Cod, come on, you don't have any problems. You have white picket fences and beautiful beaches. And if you just, as you say, you look at the news, you listen to the radio, the abuse on Cape Cod, I think, is probably as bad as it is any place else. Whether it's due to unemployment or whether it's due to the economy or the weather who knows? And domestic violence doesn't care who you are or how much money you make or don't make. We have had wives of doctors in our shelter. We have people off the street in our shelter, so it actually goes across all socioeconomic.
And that's an interesting point that you made just then, because people may think that there is a socioeconomic element to this, but where it crosses all socioeconomic levels, what type of advice do you give in that type of situation if someone knows someone who they believe might be involved in this type of relationship?
What I say when people say to me, do you think I am? If you think you are in a domestic violence situation or you think someone in your family or one of your friends is, if you question it, chances are you are. So reach out to us. Go to our website at www.capecodshelter.org or call our safe house at 508-564-7233. And we're there to help. We're there to answer questions. If you have any, we'd be more than happy to help you.
And as you said, you are full most of the time, if not all the time. And so if for our listeners who may be wondering, well, they're full, so where is there to go? What do you say to that?
We can most certainly help them with a safety plan, with advocacy. We do have means that if it's an emergency, we can work and get you either into another shelter or at least into a hotel room to get you someplace safe until we can work out a program for you.
Now, you have a big fundraiser coming up, and what's the day and time of that event? And tell us about this.
We do. This is our biggest fundraiser. It's called the Jeans and Jewels Jubilee. It will be on Saturday, March 14th at the Seacrest Hotel in North Falmouth. We're actually honoring District Attorney Michael O'Keefe with the Beacon of Hope Award for all of the work that he has been doing against domestic violence. We have the Ad Hoc All-Stars Band playing. We will have a live auction and a silent auction. And tickets right now are still on sale. We are still looking for auction items, and we're also looking for sponsorship opportunities.
Now, how important is fundraising to your organization? Because I'm sure, like any nonprofit, that is certainly a big issue for you.
We are funded through DCF, so we get 41% of our funding through the state and through the federal government. The rest of the money comes from private donations, grants, and the events that we do.
And as you say, how do you get the word out about your organization? We were talking at the beginning of the show about how it used to be a little bit of a secret that you were even around, and now you're trying to get the word out a little more. Talk about that for me.
Well, I've been doing a lot of public speaking and a lot of events. I'm reaching out, as I did to you, Laura, to all of the radio stations, the newspapers, the cable television channels. I will speak at any organization or business that will have me. The Rotaries have been very supportive. The Kiwanis Club, the District of Cape Cod, have adopted us for their day of service in April. We are also working very closely with the North Falmouth Congregational Church. They have a group that are coming in to help us. Even their youth group is collecting things for Easter baskets for the kids in the shelter. We're working with Falmouth High School. Their Honor Society came in and helped our kids decorate the Christmas tree. So we're just trying to be out in the community community as much as we can.
You're really trying to get out there, and it's interesting because 50 years ago, this would be the type of issue no one would want to talk about.
Absolutely. It was the dirty little secret that usually happened in everyone's family, but nobody wanted to say anything about it.
And how important is it for people to talk about this?
I think it's crucial. I think it's the only way that we're going to be able to stop domestic violence. And the biggest thing is I think we have to stop the cycle of domestic violence, because so many times when the families come into our shelter, after we've talked to them, we learn that they were children of parents of domestic violence, and their parents had domestic violence, and their children are growing up in domestic violence. So we really need to concentrate and work on the children and get them to understand that there is a different way, and we need to stop the cycle.
And in the last couple of minutes, anything else you'd like to add?
I just want to thank you and Cape Cod Broadcasting for having me come in today and tell you about the Cape Cod Center for Women. Again, our Jeans and Jewels Jubilee is on Saturday, March 14th at the Seacrest Hotel. Please come. It will be a great party. We will have a survivor speaking, and you'll get to hear a lot more about what our organization does.
And once more, just for the listeners who would like to know how to get in touch with in order to access your services, what phone number should they call?
They can call 508-564-7233, which is the shelter, or they can call my office at 774-763-2222, or visit us on the web at www.capecodshelter.org.
And unfortunately, we're out of time. Diane Pratt, Executive Director of Cape Cod Center for Women, thank you so much for being with me here today.
Thank you, Laura. It was a pleasure.
I'm Laura Reckford, and this is Sunday Journal.
This podcast is a presentation of Cape Cod Broadcasting, which is solely responsible for its content. Thank you for listening. For more information, please visit us at capecodbroadcasting.com.